Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching a very special edition of GEEKCASTER, film and TV geek commentary and culture. I'm Michael, and today we have in our studio
Dayveonne, Bussey. Yeah.
Samantha Bailey of Urban Beacon Kitchen and Sam Eats Plants.
And Miss Stevie, I'm the hostess of Style by Stevie Daytime.
Cool. All right, so this is a special edition because we're going to talk about film and TV, but around a specific topic. This topic is, or are, pronouns, right? Right now, everyone's like checking their grammar. Checking their grammar, and it's getting hot. I think it's only going to be, I would say, in the next 2 years, an even more complicated conversation. Well into the 2020s, I think. You know, maybe to the 2030s, things might simmer down because we got to focus on something more important, like, I don't know, air.
Wow.
Or the lack of water, I think. And at that point, we're all human, whatever. Where's that air? Because I can't focus on anything else. All right, so talking about pronouns, right? Now, it's very interesting because you have shows like Euphoria. Shows like Euphoria really like, okay, we're going to push a little further, talking about sexuality, identity, drug use, abuse, relationships, dating from a teenage perspective, right? But a teenager of today. And there's another show called Grand Army that I believe explores the same thing, but more having to do within the structure of going to high school and all the pressures of high school, in addition to identity, drug use, and all these other things. The thing that makes it so fascinating, because I really love like film history, television history. If you go back, I don't know, when TV started getting hot, like the 60s, the big thing was like if someone was in a gang, you know? And then, maybe pregnancy going into like the 70s. It was like, the big thing was like, oh, here's an episode, someone got pregnant, which dipped over to the 80s, but then it was like crack, right? It was like more focusing on drug use. Pregnancy kept going. Then you have like the 90s, early 2000s, where a lot more focus on emotion and depression, along with drug use, along with pregnancy. So now we have modern day, anytime someone wants to be hip, they're talking about identity along with these other things. So, have you guys checked out any of these shows? What are your thoughts on the presentation and how people address pronouns? It's a big introduction.
I have watched the full first season of Euphoria. I thought it was an amazing television. It's interesting you're talking about like addressing identity. I remember in the 90s, I was very drawn to, in the late 90s, to like queer film. Though I am not queer, I was very drawn to it. Anything that wasn't on one of the cable shows you had to pay for. So I didn't get to see like the big ones like The L Word. But a lot of the movies that kind of came out at the time, like The Velocity of Gary or Boys Don't Cry, things like that, I watched a lot of that stuff. And I feel that there was a understanding one's identity and having other people grasp that. I think that was a certain type of issue. But when I look at Euphoria, I don't see it as a identity thing, because the character of Hunter Schafer knows what she is. There isn't an identity issue for that character. And then the characters around her in that TV show are not even tripping about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like in terms of understanding identity, in Euphoria, it's already understood. I think maybe for the watcher, for the audience. It's for the audience to have an understanding of her identity, because she's clear. She's clear. The school is clear. Whether they even like her or not, mostly. But I didn't see the first episode of the second season, so I don't know how they really dive into that, so I can't really speak about it. But I actually found it a bit refreshing that they didn't make it a necessary topic. She's just a character on the show. To me, as a viewer, that's what it felt like to me.
That's interesting. And Stevie, you haven't seen it, and Dayveonne, you haven't seen that either, right? All right, so
Correct.
Sam, I just want to respond to that. I think that's very interesting observation that, yes, Hunter, very, very clear. Interesting, is it clever or lazy writing that you notice all the other characters are constantly questioning their relationships and their identity, or even their identity within the relationships, not necessarily sexual identity, but that's the only character that is like, I know who I am, which I feel, I don't know if that's clever or lazy, because I don't know.
You know what? I never thought about it like that.
Right.
Group, have y'all seen, it's over 20 years old right now, American Beauty, the movie?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things that I love about that movie is you show the dysfunctionality of so many different types of family, but the one couple that wasn't dysfunctional was the gay couple. I don't know if you remember that. They were always jogging together. They were kind of more that white picket fence of the grand old American feeling. Everyone else is in their muck and mire, I didn't think about this when it came to Euphoria, that you're right. Hunter's the only one not really questioning herself. She good. Everyone else is going through their relationship stuff, their drugs, their parent stuff. And she's pretty fine. And not only that.
Hunter's a little wild though. Don't
Wildness issues. Wildness is true, but I never said Hunter's not wild. Hunter's clear. That's what I said. And you are right. I didn't think about it. Hunter is the one character that's very clear about who she is and what she does. Even the things that she does that I know why you're referring to as wild, she doesn't come out of it feeling terrible about herself. She's fine.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Which has its own issues. Let's just be real. That's why I wonder if it's lazy writing or clever writing, because it's kind of like, oh man, I want to give a good example that doesn't sound like, oh, fans, don't hate me if I give the wrong example. But it's like having a Black Panther, right? Dayveonne, I'm sure you're gonna get this right. Michael B. Jordan, what was his character again?
Killmonger.
No.
Killmonger.
Killmonger? It was Killmonger?
Yeah.
Killmonger.
Jordan was Killmonger.
Okay. So Killmonger, you could sit on one point and be like, man, he went through a lot, blah, 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 blah. But again, he want to wipe out a whole bunch of people. So it was interesting, there's a whole thing of taking not to say that Hunter should be a villain, but justifying and I'm going to take a villain, I'm going to make them bad, but I'm going to make them good at the same time. So I thought it would be nicer to be even, to give everybody the even playing field where everybody had a thing that was, I guess, confident or on point, and everybody have something that might be quote unquote off, rather than singling out a character in one way. Does that make sense? Because everybody has, let's be real, everybody has something off about them, something on, something they're clear, something that they're cloudy about. And that's what makes us all beautiful, makes us different, and makes us all equal. So I feel like it was kind of lazy to kind of do that. It's almost like you're favoring a character. You're favoring, the writer's like, I'm going to favor this one versus the other, if that makes sense.
All right, so y'all, so you understand a little bit about
Yeah.
Hunter's character. I don't even know
Yeah.
the character's name. I never do. I only ever know the celebrity's
I'm
name.
bad. I'm bad like that too. Yeah. Don't feel bad.
They do a lot of flashbacks for all the characters in Euphoria, and you see that Hunter had correct me if I'm wrong because I saw the series like last year.
Yeah.
Hunter had a mom who could not handle her gender expression or gender questioning that was coming out in her childhood, and basically in a way kind of abandoned her, right? I would say emotionally and physically. Like the mom left.
Mhm.
The father is very supportive, actually, and loves Hunter very much. So Hunter's transgender, and what it looks like in the present. So that's the flashback. The flashback is like the mom having a hard time with it. The mom trying to put her in situations and institutions to try to change her mind, right? Which are very, and very detrimental to a child for different reasons. It would end up being detrimental for the child. And eventually the mom kind of pieces out and the father continues raising Hunter himself. In the present in Euphoria, Hunter expresses herself very creatively in school with the way she appears, but in out of school, she is in situations where she gets with older men for basically one-time things. And I'm just trying to show you what Michael's alluding to when he was like, she's kind of wild. And
in situations where, because in many ways she's a hero of the whole series, the strength, the confidence, I'm living my life, but then there's certain behavior that could be very poisonous for anyone, and also putting yourselves in situations that, so I think, when you put these things out in media, I get it, but at the same time you got to be careful because you don't want to also justify, well, here's some behavior that might get you in trouble or hurt or killed, but this character is so strong that you're like, oh, I want to be like that.
Hold on.
For the kids.
Hunter is very sure of herself, but do you remember Zendaya's character when Hunter was going to meet that guy,
right,
wherever they were going to meet? Zendaya was like tripping because she was like she's like, be careful, like these people hurt you. So believe me, the show addressed that you can't get hurt. Okay? The show addressed it.
Somebody put a note like, hey, we gotta put something in there.
Nah.
But we get sued.
No.
And I don't want to stay too long in it because I know that Dayveonne,
yes. But I just want to say it was not like it wasn't addressed like this is all good, all fine, no matter why she's in these situations, it's all good. It wasn't like that. Zendaya was like, I don't feel comfortable with you meeting this guy, you don't know who he is, and she was so worried for her safety, right? And it was permeated in at least 3 of those episodes. Like I was feeling it, like I hope Hunter doesn't get hurt, right? It was there, so
I was thinking the same thing.
So I got to push back, and I will say no. They did touch on the danger aspect. Okay. All right.
Okay. So we're warming up, and again, we're going to have a part two to this. So trust me, we are not going to run out of time. So I would say, and either of you could jump in, Miss Stevie or Dayveonne. What do you think of how the current crop of TV shows and films are dealing with pronouns?
I think there's a lack of education in a form where it's not being used in a proper format. They're just showing what someone transitioning to, but not actually explaining what it needs to be said or how to approach and say these things to that individual. If you get what I'm saying. Like, for instance, I can go to somebody, assume that...
I'm specifically referencing specific TV shows and films.
But they can go into assume, but they, sometimes, like, I would say one show actually kind of curved it, which was the Netflix Sabrina.
Okay.
When they had a character that preferred to be a guy.
Okay, I
and
remember
she
that. I
is a
remember
guy.
that's a good. Yeah. Okay.
And you know, when they did the bullying aspect, you're a girl, you're a girl. No, if they identify themselves as a guy, then the person is a guy.
Now, did you like how that was done in there,
It
or?
well, I'll have to say, from a person's point of view, it was tough because at the same time, you don't like seeing somebody being bullied because of that. But at the same time, it's necessary because these are things that some of us go through or people go through.
Mhm.
So you have to learn. It is a life lesson. Like you have to learn how to basically support, help people when it comes to that,
And Miss Stevie,
especially if you know.
and Miss Stevie, any particular films or TV shows that you either like or did not like how things were presented?
I would have to say I loved Pose because Pose showed representation. You know, it took place back in the ballroom era in the 1980s, and not just showcasing that movement. Where they're going out there and they're in the ballroom scene, but it showcased things outside of that as well too. And I agree with what Dayveonne just said, which is I kind of agree with that platform. Sabrina on Netflix, it could have been done a little bit differently. Some of these television shows could be done a little bit differently. And it takes time and education. When you misgender someone, it makes them feel invalidated. It makes them feel unappreciated in a way. And it's important that we use the correct pronouns. So I'm thankful for platforms like Pose that showcased it the correct way. And then there's some out here that to just go and say, okay, this is what we're going to put out here. Don't be so quick to put out a project. Make sure you follow through full step with it. That this is what you're going to put out. 100% do the research.
One thing I did like a lot about Sabrina, I think the writing could have been better as far as it was just out of nowhere. The character was very out of nowhere and this and that, but regardless, I like the fact there was a pushback. I like the fact that there were people that did not like that character because that's real life. And for kids to see that, oh, those guys are bad for beating up that person. Oh, those guys they're not just ignored. Like, regardless, when it comes to politics, religion, and this and that, the whole thing of tolerating people, that whole concept, I find that kind of laughable because who wants to be tolerated? So I find like sometimes with the scripts, people just, okay, let me just throw this in there and don't show any kind of push-pull because I think people need to know that there's going to be something. Not just, oh, you're there and you're in a little bubble and the character exists. Also, I thought with Sabrina's, that particular character, again, can't remember the character's name. I thought it was brilliant that near the end of the series, or the last two seasons or whatever like that, that character fell in love with a male character. And I thought that was, I don't know if you got that far into did you watch that far into Sabrina or no?
Yeah, I did.
And I thought
He
was,
fell in love with a male character. Yeah.
and I thought that was because, which will transition to another part of this conversation, how one identifies himself does not necessarily, or how one chooses to present themselves doesn't necessarily equal sexuality. And that's
not at all.
And that's something that they didn't explore at all. They could have. The fact that it was just kind of thrown in there, I thought was very interesting because you never see that. I think that was the first time I've ever seen any series or production to do that ever.
To show a trans person who is homosexual, is that what you're saying? So someone who,
well, I guess, I don't know if this is correct. Beat me up if it's not, whatever. But to show, I'm not here to be correct. I'm just here to what I observe. To show a biologically female character that says, no, this is who I am, and presents themselves as a young man, and then have a relationship with a man. And I thought that was very powerful. And what makes me think of, going to dance school and probably meeting a lot of the real characters that Pose emulates that time period. I find that like there's a transition even in labels. We had all these labels, right? But there are a lot of men, heterosexual men, that dressed as women. We used to use the term cross-dressing, but cross-dressing has nothing necessarily to do with
sexuality
and sexuality, and you never hear that. You don't see that. I know that's a very old school thing, but it's just like we can't move so fast to just throw a whole bunch of changing, and not like, because I think a lot of people in different aspects and different quadrants of different communities are being kind of just painted off and written off. Does that make sense?
It does. I do want to push back a little bit. There was one tiny little short line in Euphoria when Zendaya's character is describing Hunter and says she's mostly het.
Interesting.
It was a quick little thing. I caught it though, and I was like, I love that they put it there because Hunter's character did mostly get with men, and then she and then Zendaya had their little friendship love thing, whatever that was. But Zendaya said it before they even had their little friendship love fest. It was like, she's mostly het, meaning hetero. She's mostly het. And so in there, they describe this transgender woman and saying like, sometimes she does get into a relationship with a woman, though most of the time she's more attracted to men, or she's typically more so going towards men.
Now, I'm going to have another old school moment Okay, let me stretch myself over here. Growing up, that was very simple. It's called being bi. I don't know anyone that's bi anymore. I know all these fancy, I'm pan, I'm this, I stretch, I'm a giraffe. Come on, son. Growing up, it was super simple. It was like, boom, 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 boom. There's like 4 choices, 4 little boxes. It was super simple. No more, huh?
I'm gonna push on that.
Go ahead.
This is what I do.
Go for it.
It was super simple in how we decided to categorize, but it was never that simple. It was never that simple.
Wow.
And I know we can reach back. I know we can reach back.
Out with, it was super simple.
I know we can reach out back into our personal lives, and we see people that really do span a certain type of a radiation of sorts. I remember. Okay, true story, right?
True story.
I was obsessed, and still kind of am, but I was really obsessed with Angelina Jolie. And one day when I'm in college, I'm going through a magazine, I see a picture of her, and I make this sound as if it was like a really hot guy, like if it was LL Cool J or whatever. And I'm like, ooh. And then I was like, Sam! I was like, oh, I just did this for a woman, right? Anyway, so I was talking about it because I found it so funny. It was so instinctual. And I didn't even expect it. And then but I did understand that Sigmund Freud, not to say that everything he says was correct or anything, I'm not trying to say that, but he did talk about sexuality on a spectrum. Almost think about it like a scale of 1 to 10. And in the middle is true bisexuality. And on either end is heterosexual or homosexual. And there's a number in there for almost all of us, right? And when I heard that, I was like, that makes sense to me. In my mind, it just made sense.
But why did but the thing is, I think all that is probably, arguably true, right? But what difference does it make? If I like apples this much and I like pears this much, I like fruits. What difference does it make?
You're right.
What the whole gradient scale thing, who cares?
You're right. What difference does it make? It's not for usually the people. These are usually for people who are so obsessed with categorizations. So we make categorizations for people who need to put people in boxes. That's what I think. And I did theater, and I know you did theater. And in theater, we're all wackadoodles, right?
Right.
You already know that. And we're so far more apt to be whatever, right?
Nobody
it doesn't.
cared. nobody.
No one cares,
no one
right?
cared, right?
It's just like, all right, you is you, you is you. But you leave theater, you leave the creative world, and you find that people want to place you. Like, not even talk about sexuality or identity, but even me as like a Black person that grew up without religion, I saw how people had to really stretch their mind to place me. They're like, what do you mean you're not Christian? So you're Muslim? No, I don't have any religion. Well, what did you grow up with? Nothing. And they couldn't. It felt.
Yeah, Sam.
They,
I don't know what to do with you.
they needed to place it. So what I'm trying to say is, like,
Stevie,
we didn't have all these.
I don't know what to do with you, girl.
They didn't know what to do. So I'm just saying, as someone who understands at least that part of identity and how much more it affected other people than me and my father. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's why we have all of this. All of this exists. Pansexuality, demisexual, asexual, like, no, not asexual, that's been around, but like, it all exists because people weren't satisfied with like someone saying I'm bisexual, but then they're always dating women, and it's like, but you're always dating women, I think you're bisexual, and then now you have to like try to explain yourself because this person just can't expand their mind to be like, all right, that's what's going on with her. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, Steve.
You understand?
Miss Steve, you just made a big agreed jump in. You were thinking something. What were you?
I was agreeing with her 100% on what she said, because when it comes to gender has no spectrum. Sexuality has no spectrum. Everybody, is interested into what they're interested in. And
Simple, right? You like what you like?
And it should have no labels. It's just like me. I'm a fashion girl. For me, fashion should have no labels. People should be free to express themselves when it comes to their sexuality. And I'm all about sexual liberation and owning your sexuality, owning your femininity, owning all of that and so much more. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and again, for anyone wondering what I was referencing, let me see how much time we have. Let me see. Yeah, you know what? I should say that for part 2. Yes, son. All right, everybody, give your social, social media, and then we'll do part 2. If you're watching us live on Twitch, we're just gonna keep it going. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see the second part, or if you're seeing us on cable, you'll see us next week. Okay, so everyone, give your social media. Start yourself. Yep, go ahead.
Dayveonne Bussey on all the things except for Twitter. Okay. Shamar Williams.
Sam?
Sam Eats Plants on Instagram. That's with an underscore at the end. Sam Eats Plants _
Style by Stevie _ daytime. And my Facebook is Stevie Shepherd.
Awesome. And I'm Michael7Michael on Instagram. And yeah, that's awesome. All right, so you're watching GEEKCASTER. We're going to stop it abruptly, and then we're going to start abruptly. How about that? Because we can do that. It's called pressing buttons. That's awesome. But definitely go to GeekCaster.com. You can go to GeekCaster on Twitch, and you can check us out on all the things. Right, Dayveonne, that's it? We're all the things.
All the things.
All of the things.
All the things.
Let's get the music going. Do, 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 do.
Okay.